Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, as you know, it's been a while since I've done a cigar night. I'm not going to sit here reviewing cigars and talking about tobacco tonight because I actually have something a lot more interesting for you. You see, I am a man who likes to try to ignore a lot of the crap he sees on the internet. And especially when it comes to, let's call them psychopaths, crazy people with crazy ideas who, flamboyantly present themselves to the internet, whether it be teachers trying to teach dangerous ideologies to our kids. I live here in Romania. Even as a father, I sometimes just close my eyes and think, okay, it's not in my world yet. I'm going to do my best to try and fight against this. I speak against this kind of ideology all the time, which lands you in a lot of trouble and in the crosshairs of cancel culture. But there was one lady, let's say, at the time certainly it was a lady, who was impossible to ignore. Absolutely impossible to ignore. And the videos filled me with absolute rage. I was mind blown that people were allowed to behave this way, to act this way, to conduct themselves in this manner. And I'm talking, of course, about the great Josh Seater. He was a former reality TV star. He starred on The Bachelor, a very manly man. I don't know how tall he is, but certainly big, muscular, hairy chest. His beard is nicer than mine. And this guy was walking around in a dress having, found his true self, found her true self, and was officially, for many, many months, a transgender woman. Now, if you accept the definitions of womanhood that are given to us by the left and that are propagated by the Democrats, I don't see how these people couldn't say he was a woman. But for me, personally, Orthodox Christian living here in Eastern Europe, he was absolutely not a woman, but he was fucking good. I don't know if this guy has a background in acting. I don't know exactly what made him come up with this, but he had me fooled. I smelled smoke much later on. I thought, this guy, it's too crazy. It must be a troll. But if you don't know who Josh Seater is, I'm going to show you a quick video. These are the types of videos that got my attention all those months ago.
I look like a hot mess today. I just wanted to vent a little bit. I feel like dates can be so cheap. The last couple of dates that I've gone on, I've expected the guy to pay because I feel like the man should pay for the first date, and they just don't want to. And so I just had a date earlier this afternoon, and I sat there when the bill came, and finally I just said, the guy should pay first, and kind of pushed it towards him, and he said, well, in that case, you should pay. And I just thought, that is so rude. And I just don't understand what the issue is. I feel like everyone's trying to get something for free these days. I don't understand. I just want to go on a date and have the man be a gentleman and treat me right, treat me like a woman.
Hey everyone! So I wanted to give you a little update about why I changed my mind about bottom surgery. I thought long and hard about this, no pun intended, and I just don't think I want to do it. I've never been a wasteful person, even when it comes to things like food and money, and so I just don't think it's right to get rid of this. And I just want to say, this won't make me any less feminine or womanly. Our manhood does not negate our womanhood. So I just wanted to give you guys that little update. Okay, bye everyone!
That's quite enough of that for now. Now, when I was seeing his videos come up, I just thought, another typical narcissistic man who thinks that, womanhood is just a costume that you could put on and portray, and, go about the world in. And the funny thing is, I was reading the comments. It was TikTok. He was very big. There was a lot of his videos floating around X. And the genius of this, the true genius, is that he had everybody fooled. He had me fooled. I couldn't stand him in his current, outfits. But he had the left fooled. He had the transgenders fooled. He had the people who say that this is a normal and healthy world view fooled, because people like me would attack him, and people like me would call out his lunacy and say, if I see him in my daughter's bathroom, God knows what's going to happen. And all of these people are typing very sane comments, but the left, the transgenders, the people who act exactly like he's acting the way in this video, would defend him. They jump to his defense, and they call people out, and they call people like me bigots and Nazis and all sorts of horrible names. And then it came out just a few days ago, which I think is probably the smartest move ever pulled. I mean, I really liked the Matt Walsh movie, What Is a Woman? That was quite good. But in terms of intellectual chess moves to expose this ideology, this was the single smartest move ever pulled because, ladies and gentlemen, he was in fact joking. It was a big fucking joke the whole time, and he just wanted to see how far he could go. So I haven't spoken to him, just a few Twitter DMs up until this point, but he is here to join us live on the show tonight, and boy, do I have some questions for him. So ladies and gentlemen, there's 15,000 of you watching. Please welcome Mr. Josh Seater.
How's it going, everyone?
Hello, Josh. How you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I am absolutely amazing. It's nice to talk to you in a very friendly manner because you had me fooled. I couldn't stand you when I thought you were being legit. Do you have a background in acting or drama?
I don't have a background in acting. It's pretty easy to lampoon and satirize mentally ill people. We've all seen SNL skits, of people dressing up as women, and it's absolutely hilarious. So I thought it was pretty easy to just make fun of them. You don't have to be a great actor to make fun of these people because the premise alone of a man thinking he's a woman is fucking hilarious. So you don't have to do anything other than just be a trans person, be a man in costume, and it's hilarious. And so I think that made my job so much easier.
What inspired you to do this? Like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back where you sat around? Because obviously you didn't get found out, you didn't get exposed. It must have been a difficult 6 months. What made you do this in the first place?
Yeah, I was just listening to the ridiculous claims in the media and in higher education and online of people saying, oh, a trans person's valid. If a trans identified man feels he's a woman, she is a woman, and there's no difference between them and a biological woman. And me and my friends were like, this is patently false. How are they saying this with a straight face? So I said, I need to call it out. But if I call it out, they're going to say I'm a bigot.
Yeah.
How do I call it out without being called a bigot? I will infiltrate them, become one of them, and then expose it from the inside like a mole and expose it for the ridiculous fraud that it is. And everyone will see that me and every other trans woman is just a man in makeup. And it worked.
So what's the backlash been like? Because these people had your back. They were defending you in all of the comments, and they were calling people like me names. What has the backlash been like now that you've come out essentially as your true self and let them know you were fooling them? Are they as furious as I imagine?
Yeah, they're like, you asshole, you think it's funny to make fun of an already vulnerable community? So what, you exposed us for being kind and compassionate? I said there is nothing kind and compassionate about erasing women, mocking women, invading women's space, and brainwashing children in your sexual fetish. So don't tell me that you're being kind and compassionate when you enable these people. You're an enabler, and shame on you, and you should be ashamed of yourself. It's not a virtue. You're not noble for being kind and compassionate to men invading women's spaces.
I completely agree, which leads me to an important question. I mean, how far were you willing to take this? I mean, did you go into a lady's bathroom? How far did you push the button? Because obviously all I saw was the stuff you personally recorded on TikTok, but you're out in public dressed like that. You needed to pee. Where did you go?
So unlike most trans people, I mean, all trans women are just dudes in dresses like me, so we're all the same. We're all fakers, we're all pretenders. But unlike the people that are earnest about it and mentally ill about it, I actually had a moral compass. And so I would never go into a women's bathroom. I would never film around kids. I would never if a kid was walking by the area where I was filming, I would tell the person, hey, stop filming. I don't want them to see me. I would usually have a heavy coat on so that I wasn't out in public like that. I didn't want kids to see a man in a dress because, it's not okay.
Agreed.
And so I did have kind of this moral framework I was operating in.
No, respect, because I saw you when you came out. I thought of you very much as like an undercover cop, and there's always this moral dilemma that they have. Like, how far do you push the undercover cop aspect? Okay, people are taking drugs around me. Am I fine with it? People are killing people around me. Am I fine with it? So you were very much an agent on the front lines, trying not to get exposed. Did people start to question you at any point? Because I mean, I commented on underneath one of your posts. I believe it was about a month ago, and I said, I think you're trolling, but if you're trolling, you're a genius, and if you're not, you're a fucking weirdo or something like that.
There were people calling me out. I would say opinion was split, maybe 50-50, on whether it was genuine,
Yeah.
whether I was faking being a faker. But, it's interesting that you can't tell the difference between slapstick comedy and these people's genuine movement. And I think that's an indictment on trans ideology and the woke mob, that most people can't tell the difference between a guy doing slapstick comedy and trans people, which tells me their whole movement is a joke.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we don't have much of this where I'm from. I've never met a trans person here in Romania. They don't exist. Where were you filming? Are you in California, Florida? Where are you?
I was sadly in Chicago, where it's very common and very ubiquitous. You see it all, you walk outside, it's literally everywhere, which is fine. I don't care if adults want to be mentally ill, and if men want to dress up in dresses, nobody cares about that.
I agree.
What we care is that they're trying to tell us that we have to accept it as truth and a fact that they are real women, which they're not, and we have to be okay with them bringing this to little kids in drag stories hour, in schools and libraries. That's where at least I draw the line. If you want to dress up as a woman, I think it's weird. I don't give a shit. It's America here. Do
Agreed.
it, but don't tell me I have to accept it, or I have to say that you're the same thing as a real woman.
So I saw a clip the other day, and I want to ask you about this. And this is quite a personal question. The answer may be disgusting for some people to hear, but I'm very curious on your experience. I saw very recently a trans woman on a podcast with this beautiful actual biological female. And she said to the biological female, "Oh, you're just hate me because it's competition, because we're dating the same men." And this beautiful woman says, "No, we're not. And I don't date trans women, obviously. I date beautiful women." So I thought, surely no one's actually hitting on these people. What were your DMs like when you were dressed up like this? Did you have any serious offers from men who purport to be straight?
There were delusional people, mostly self-identified leftists, telling me how open-minded they were and how all their friends were, trans, telling me I was a beautiful woman and, oh my God, that lipstick looks so good on you. And it's objectively false. I objectively looked hideous, which just let me know that not only are trans people mentally ill, but lots of their supporters are as well. So it's really a pathology. It's a woke mind virus, and it poisons people's perceptions to the point that they think a 6 foot tall, 200-pound tatted up male in lipstick is hot.
So do you think these people, you spoke about, I can't remember the exact terminology, but I think it was a very good point. You were speaking about the sexual fetish that men have of dressing up like women. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and say why you think that's, I guess, the cornerstone of the trans movement?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Autogynephilia is a sexual fetish where a man is turned on at the thought of himself being a woman. Mm-hmm. Cool. Nobody cares if you want to wank it in a dress. I don't care. But when you tell me that your sexual fetish is my truth and that it magically turns you into a woman, then there's a problem. So like most things on the left, they have taken something that is very small and they have become so extreme and taken it to such absurd lengths that that's when people start saying, wait, hold up. If you have a sexual fetish and you get turned on at the thought of yourself being a woman, whatever, fine. But that doesn't magically make you a woman, and it doesn't mean I have to be okay with my kids hearing about it. And so it's just another thing they've done and taken it to the nth degree.
Now, I've seen a lot of people who detransition. There's quite a few brave people who I guess fell for this mind virus and were convinced that they were the other sex or the other gender, and they've detransitioned. You made a point that, you were a woman for 6 months for all intents and purposes, according to the left. If you can take it off and start being a man again, then you were never a woman in the first place. What was that? Exactly how did you put it? I can't remember.
Yeah, so that was exactly the whole basis of what I wanted to do with the experiment, is I wanted people to see something very simple, which is that a man dressing up as a woman, becoming valid, and then detransitioning back into a man so that the curtain's pulled back and it's kind of like the emperor with no clothes, and people go, wait, he was just a man all along. Well, that's not just Josh Sider. That is every trans woman and trans man out there is just their biological sex. At the end of the day, they can't change it, and wearing a costume doesn't change it, no matter how much you want to. And so I just wanted people to see that metamorphosis and see the veil pulled back and see that we're all just dudes cosplaying as women, and we're not really women.
Yeah, and I think you were perfectly positioned to do this. I mean, someone like myself and my brother never would have gotten away with this. They would have known immediately that we were lying and faking, especially here in Romania. I'd probably get punched walking down the street if I was seen wearing a dress. Let's be slightly kind for a second. Because I myself, I believe the same as you. If you wish to dress up in women's clothes, you're allowed to wear what you want. I wear what I want, you wear what you want. But a point that I made before that you perhaps have or haven't heard, and I'd like you to comment on it. I said, how come that surgeries, gender-affirming surgeries, are the only form of plastic surgery that affirms anything? I'll give you a quick breakdown. If a woman has small tits, for example, and she gets big tits, we say, okay, she's had plastic surgery. She was a woman with small tits with big tits. She's not allowed to say, I've always been a woman with big tits. I was born in the wrong body. I've had big tits the whole time, and you're not allowed to say I didn't. And these implants are just affirming my true self. Why do you think? Because transgenderism to me is essentially plastic surgery. And we're in a free market economy. Any plastic surgery any surgeon wants to sell, he should be able to. But why is it specifically the operations that make men appear more female that are affirming? Why is it in a protected bubble?
I think it shows just how much this has metastasized into the medical communities, into the media. That's a proposition that is so demonstrably false, such as this surgery affirms who I was all along. Well, as you just showed, no, they just gave you boobs, but it didn't mean you had big boobs the whole time. Or in the case of trans people, it didn't mean you were a woman the whole time. You just got a surgery that now gave you the appearance of big boobs, and that's fine, but it doesn't mean you were that thing all along. And so they just take something they're doing now, a reality, and say, oh, that means I was this thing the entire time, even since birth. I did another analogy similar to this, and I said, the trans movement has to agree that throughout history, anyone who couldn't afford surgeries that was trans or had gender dysphoria, all the cavemen that couldn't get plastic surgery, that were walking around at 6'3" with hairy chests, beating on their chests and hunting and gathering, they were all valid women. They were all women, all the ones that felt they were trans, and we have to respect them as such, because the medical guidelines say you don't have to get surgery, you don't have to take hormones, you don't have to transition to be valid. All you have to do is have a gender identity that differs from your biological sex. Well, then all the cavemen we're digging up that had gender dysphoria, they're women. Is that what you want us to? It's so absurd, and I hope that shows, like with me, we're dudes. Cavemen are cavemen, and they're not women. It doesn't matter if they had a diagnosable mental illness like gender dysphoria. They're still just dudes with a mental illness.
I've said this before. I've said, I can't remember. I was making the argument to somebody on a behind the scenes on a podcast. I said, I've had a hair transplant. I did. My hair was falling out a bit. I got my hairline fixed. Whatever, it happens. But I'm not allowed to say, actually, I've had a full head of hair the whole time. Born in the wrong body. I'm not a man who was going bald in his 30s, as most men do. I wasn't at all. No, my hair was perfectly fine. This just affirmed the fact that I'm a man with a full head of hair. And it's ridiculous when you say it about any other form of plastic surgery besides the ones that make you look like the opposite gender. I don't understand. What do you think of the... I'll be honest, I've done some analysis. I've lived in Romania for 9 years. It's an Orthodox Christian country, a very serious country. I've met 0 trans people so far. And throughout my entire experience here, I've never heard the term. I have children who go to school. I'm a father. This is one of the reasons I speak against this kind of lunatic ideology, because because I'm trying to raise the next generation of children. What would you say is the factor that makes American children so, I guess, happy to identify as trans, etc.? Because I've never heard of a trans kid here. It doesn't exist in my country at all. Not one. Never seen it. Why is American transgender youth or trans kids on the massive rise? What explains it?
That's such a great question. A lot of I'm a mental health advocate. I have been for the 8 years.
Respect.
A lot of the literature when it comes to cognitive behavioral therapy and psychotherapy says that a lot of our anxiety and depression stems from a sense of feeling isolated, alone, or nihilistic. A lot of us feel like we're in this existential vacuum where we don't belong. And that causes a lot of anxiety and depression. What gives you a sense of belonging, a community? How do you belong to a community that's popular or in vogue? You say you're one of them. So it has now become a way for people who had this nihilistic feeling, this existential crisis, this feeling of loneliness and sadness, to get behind a cause, have a sense of purpose, and feel like they belong. And so you're getting millions of these people malingering and faking that they're trans. In their head, they may believe it because of the media and the medical community, shame on them, has brainwashed them into thinking it's valid. And they, in return, like a hit of crack, get that high feeling from belonging. Now they have a sense of purpose. Overnight, I have a sense of purpose. I'm trans. I have sisters and brothers in this trans world. They care about me. I have something to get behind. And so I think it's all for a sense of belonging. And if they would just find a different outlet, and if our media, politicians, schools, and medical community wouldn't encourage it, we wouldn't see it metastasizing like it is.
Bravo, well said. And you gave the analogy, in fact, in that last speech you gave about a hit of crack. And I think that's very true when it comes to this ideology, because you can be around. I mean, I come from a town, a very poor town with a lot of drug use, never took any myself. But I can understand being around a bunch of crack addicts saying, look, just smoke crack with us. Now you're one of now you're one of the crack people. Now you're one of the crackheads. You're now a part of this community. It's massively unhealthy. It's arguably the most unhealthy community to join, because if you do it the right way, you'll sterilize yourself from life and effectively end your bloodline. Plus complications could happen and you can literally die because of this. What do you think the solution to this is then in the United States? Because I'm speaking about the United States in particular. I'm a US citizen, but it doesn't exist in a lot of countries in the world. How do we make kids, how do we prevent kids from falling into this trap? What do we do? You've been inside the community. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you make a great point. We don't see it in other countries at the rates we see it in America, which is proof in itself that it is man-made and fake. Because Correct. Where it's encouraged, it happens. And where it's not encouraged, you never see it. So it's manufactured by people, and it's fake. And the way we get rid of it is we stop encouraging it at every turn through the media, through our pathetic politicians who care more about virtue signaling than helping people with gender dysphoria. Mm-hmm. They only care about themselves and earning brownie points. They don't care about the people who are confused about their gender identity. Those people need real help. They have a diagnosable mental illness under the DSM-5, and they deserve help. But everyone's worried about themselves. The media wants to virtue signal. The medical community wants to virtue signal. They will compromise all morals, all truths to do it, and it's despicable. So the way we stop it is we stop indulging people's delusions. We stop encouraging it, and you're going to see the rates coming down, just like to the point, maybe not where it's non-existent, like in countries like yours, but the rates are going to come down. But as long as we're encouraging it, it's going to keep happening, because guess what? It's a fad, and it's in vogue to be trans or LGBTQIA now.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know the numbers to this, but even identifying as any member of the LGBTQIA plus 2S whatever community in states like California is now amongst young people upwards of 20% in some places, which I think can't be natural. And it can't be. I mean, you could say that homosexual men exist in every country in the world. I would agree with you. I would agree that in places like Nigeria and Iran, where you get executed for being a homosexual, people still are homosexuals and engage in that behavior. And we're looking at a rate of about 0.5% of men, 0.5% of men, which seems standardized all over the world. Whatever the reason for that is, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. But do you think that, I guess, nurture rather than nature can also be responsible for people, I guess, entering a homosexual lifestyle? I know that's a crazy question, but the fact that it's so much higher in even certain states within America than other states, and certainly in America as a whole, as opposed to other parts of the world, I mean, can people be groomed into this?
Yeah, when it comes to homosexuality, I think that I have a little different views about that than I do about trans.
Same.
I think that's a little more naturally occurring. And in
Hmm.
fact, I think in a lot of places, you're encouraged to not be homosexual and to follow heteronormative expectations. So that might actually be artificially pushing down the numbers of
Yes.
true men who are attracted to men, whatever. When it comes to trans people, there is no doubt that much of it now in America is nurture, it's conditioning, and it's incentivized, and we're rewarding it. And it should come as a shock and a surprise to no one that we're seeing these explosive numbers that don't exist in any other country. But yeah, that's where I would. But with the gay thing, it's hard to know because you'd have to analyze the state's
Yeah.
laws and rules and how
Yeah.
they grew up and
And I
things
don't
like
know
that.
either.
Yeah, so it's tough.
What do you think this can? So you pretended for a while. You pretended to be a, well, I mean they all pretend, but you pretended to be a member of their community for a while. What greater side effects do you think this could have on, say, a young person who at age 12, 13, 14 gets sucked into this lifestyle, sucked into this cult, essentially recruited into this cult? Let's say they get a university education, they're a 21-year-old, they're still trans. How do you think the trans ideology can affect, I guess, decision making and rationality in other aspects of life? I mean, should we trust these people to be politicians, leaders of our nations? You know.
If a person thinks that a dude in a dress magically becomes a woman, I am going to be highly suspicious of his erudition, his intelligence, and his decision making in all aspects of life, like you just said. It really calls into question their character, calls into question their morality, their ability to be truthful, their voraciousness. I can't trust someone that is trying to tell me with a straight face that a 30 or 40-year-old guy that throws on a dress magically becomes a woman. So it makes me nervous because so many people believe this and are toting that mantra that trans people are valid and they're just like biological women. I wouldn't trust them to babysit my kid. I wouldn't trust them to go to the store and get a cigar for me. So they basically discredit themselves, and they completely just, it's hard to trust somebody like that.
Why do you think this is pushed so heavily on children? Because let's be honest, there's no reason that anybody who isn't a teacher should be reading students to stories to students. I gave a great example once. I said, look, I was in my 20s back at the time. I was a young man in my 20s. I said, look, well, I'm a bit of a playboy. I like to sleep with a bunch of different women. So let's have womanizer story hour. I'm going to go and, bring 3 or 4 of my girlfriends in their underwear, stand behind me, and I'm reading to your kids. It's just a story. It's just a book. Don't worry. But why do you think that these people have, I guess, the special right and the special privilege to talk to kids about their sex lives? Because no one else has it. I'm not allowed to do it. And I wouldn't want to, Josh. If you have kids or any of my friends who have kids, I don't want to sit down with anyone's kids, even my own kids, and talk about my sex life. Why do these people have the thumbs up to do this and nobody else?
Yeah, so why they have the thumbs up is because the incentives all run in the wrong direction. You're rewarded by the media, you're rewarded by your peers, you're rewarded by society writ large if you go along with whatever is woke at the moment. And so no one wants to be an outcast like we talked about earlier. Everyone wants to belong. No one wants to be a pariah. So what are you going to do when the official narrative is that dudes can be women? You're going to say, all right, well, I'll go along with it. I don't want to be ostracized. That's why it's allowed. Now, going to your other part of your question about why they do it, like all cults, which have terribly base logic, they know no grown adult with a thinking brain would agree with what they're saying. So they know, they're smart enough to know that to get these people to believe the delusions of their cult, they have to get them at a young age. And that's why a big part of their proselytizing is getting kids young with drag story hour, bringing kids to drag shows where they're twerking half naked or completely naked in front of kids, making Disney movies that are targeting kids, YouTube Kids, which is targeting kids, They're smart enough to know no one's going to buy their bullshit if they're Josh Sider or Tristan Tate. We got to get them when they're 5 years old. That's the only way we can brainwash them. And so it's all part of their propaganda and their brainwashing. And they're smart and they're good at it. And they have the imprimatur of the media and our politicians, and it's disgusting.
Would a solution then be, just brainstorming, if we were to say, because I'm fully in support of anyone wearing what they want and living however they live. I go back to my house at the end of my day of work and I have sex with who I want and I don't tell anybody. I encourage everyone to do the same, regardless of who it is, as long as they're consenting adults. I don't have any problem with these people. But would you say that perhaps a good solution would be to label trans content as an adult-only like lifestyle choice? You have to be over 18 to I guess, indulge in trans content, to watch trans content. Would that help at all?
We need to start making them play by everyone else's rules. They say they want equal rights, Tristan. What they want is special privileges. They want to be able to do what me and you can't do. Like you said earlier, you can't go talk about your sexual fetishes in front of kids. They want special privileges to do that. So we need to rescind their special privileges, tell them they can be equal with us and do what everyone else can do, but they're not going to have carte blanche or the imprimatur of the state to go in and do the things that they're doing. And so we need to put a stop to it, because they're really just given special. Nobody could bring their 5-year-old son to a strip joint. But if they're having drag time there, a drag show, you can. They need to have their special privileges revoked.
Yeah. How much do you think this hurts the gay community? Because I one of my oldest friends, a gay guy who lives in England, I know gay people, and he said it hurts his community. I want to hear your points on this. He said, look, you are not anti, they pile everyone together in this 2S LGBTIQ plus P whatever movement, so that when I say I don't want children to have gender reassignment surgery, they try to say, no, Tristan, you're against homosexual men from living their lives, because they've piled it all together. And I recently saw that on the board of the New York Drag Show Committee, there's not a single homosexual man. Not one. There's no gay men on the Gay Rights Parade committee. It's all just transgenders, people identifying as furries, animals, all sorts of weird stuff. And there's no more gay men on the Gay Rights Board. Do you think this damages the legitimate concerns of the gay community?
I have a network of gay and bi and queer friends and family members, very close. I even have trans family member. And my gay friends and family members and people that I talk to tell me it is an absolute stain and blemish on the LGBTQ community. The T's have taken over, and they are sick and tired of it. They basically have turned the gay movement into a circus. It's been hijacked by these radical trans activists, and almost exclusively every gay or bi person I talk to is sick of it. They think it's bad. They think it's sunk their reputation, and it's counterproductive for everything they've been trying to achieve, which is to just be seen as humans. That's not what the radical trans wing of their part of the LGBTQ community wants. They don't just want to be seen as humans. They want special privileges and superpowers. And most of the LGBTQ people are absolutely sick of it. And even Dave Chappelle has talked about how everyone else in that community is sick of the transgender people and what they have done to the reputation of the movement.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think identity politics pulls into this a little bit? Because I'm very anti-identity politics. My father was African-American. My mother's white, so I'm a white-looking mixed-race guy. But I can't stand the victimhood mindset and the victimhood hierarchy. Straight white men, worst people ever, you're all evil. And as you go down the list, black, brown, gay, trans, whatever, you then become this special protected class of people who are victimized. Do you think that identity politics plays a factor? Because it's very easy to go from straight white man, the number one most hated group, you know, I get the most oppressed group by the left, but the most privileged group according to their ideology, to transgender woman immediately. Do you think that identity politics helps feed this machine?
I was just talking to someone about this 2 days ago. I said, isn't it funny how in 1 second I can go from a straight white cis male,
Yeah.
and the second I feel like I want to be a woman, I'm suddenly in this protected minority class with special privileges, that being a trans woman. And now I've unlocked the Special Olympics of victimhood, and I'm
Yeah.
knocking off every single thing that I possibly can. Now I'm a woman, now I'm queer, now I'm not cis. It's absolutely amazing. So of course that incentivizes people to go, well, it's rewarded and I get to be a victim now and I get to complain about everything. And like a hit of crack, why wouldn't I take a hit of it and suddenly become a trans woman? So identity politics, it's so interesting because that used to be something that the right was lambasted
Yes.
for by the left all through the 90s and early 2000s. Stop playing identity politics. And now the people that play it is the media and the radical left. They're the ones constantly dividing and balkanizing us based on our identities, whether it's gender identity, sexual orientation, our race. They are obsessed with it. It is a fetish for them. Identity politics is a fetish for the woke mob. And so that definitely plays into all of this because in a split second, I go from a straight cis male to a oppressed, victimized trans woman. It's such a joke.
And how far does this go? Because I know trans people will say, oh, trans people have been around forever. And, they try to inject a famous example, actually, I'll rant for 60 seconds. They try to inject trans ideology into histories of the past and say, oh, look, trans people have been around for a while. They take people like, in the Middle East, there used to be something called an honor virgin, whereas a man had no sons, one of his daughters would essentially act as a man to buy property and to escort his women around. This is way in the past. And they look, these people are trans when it was really nothing like today's trans ideology. How do you think? One second, I'm about to sneeze. Give me half a second. Am I going to sneeze? I feel like I'm going to sneeze. But yeah, how far does I guess I'm not. How far does this ridiculousness go? Because I want you to talk a little bit about furries because they haven't been around forever. Trans women haven't been around my whole lifetime. This basically didn't exist when I was a little kid. And I've seen it like grow within society like this big ugly tree sprouting in the middle of a beautiful flower garden. Now people are identifying as animals and furries and wearing masks and saying that you have to use certain animal pronouns. From your experience within the community, is this real? Do people really do this? I mean, how far does it go? Could you be black? I mean, well, when does this stop?
Yeah, so a lot of these people are it's a bunch of Jussie Smollets. They have to fake incidences of, oh, well, in the past, this happened in the Roman people. They were actually trans, and Abraham Lincoln was a queer, and he liked to lay in bed with men, and you didn't know that? They are so desperate to prop up and justify the unjustifiable that they will change history just like they change words to try to support them. But then people like us call them out for it, but they're really experts at it. And then to go to the second part of your question, you get furries. Well, that's the natural extension of the trans movement. What I did in my experiment was reductio ad absurdum. I was showing that when you can disprove the proposition of postmodern gender ideology by showing that when taken to its logical end, it leads to absurd results. Well, those absurd results are manifested in furries. That is the most absurd case you can think of what happens when you take this to its logical, natural end. And that alone disproves the whole proposition that trans is even a thing. The whole thing is arbitrary, it's amorphous, it's nebulous, it's all BS. If you can identify as a woman and you're a man, then why can't I identify as a furry? I need someone to, they can't explain it. And so I actually like furries because it shows how fucking stupid this movement is.
Yeah, I understand. I guess one of my final questions will be, because this isn't just indoctrination from the media. It's not just indoctrination from the culture and Hollywood. A lot of it, I'm sad to say, what I see in America, I see parents fetishizing this and dragging their kids into it. To give you an example, I have a daughter, and she loves Spider-Man, and she loves kicking a football around. Don't know why. It's just what she likes. She runs around saying she's Spider-Man and does this with her hands. It's adorable. if I was a kid, if I was I guess a left-wing psychopath in California, and I'd seen these types of behaviors in my kid, one, how much jail time should I get if I put her on testosterone at age 4? And two, why is there no accountability for the parents who drag their children into this? Is that not child abuse?
Yeah, it should be. I was just talking on Sarah Gonzalez Uncensored about this because she infiltrated a drag show that was kid friendly, aka groomers welcome, and they were talking about their vaginas and they were twerking nude in front of the kids with their cheeks clapping. It was absolutely disgusting. And the parents in all these videos, we've all seen them online. Libs of TikTok post them. We've all seen them, and the parents are laughing and hollering. The kids look traumatized in every clip because they're too young to understand what's going on. All of those parents should have CPS called on them. We need to somehow get all of the, anytime they go to a drag show, I think in that state, the state needs to find out who those people were and throw them in jail and have their kids taken away for child abuse. And so I think it's disgusting. But again, not only is it allowed, our media and our politicians encourage it. And you know what? We're going to get to a point where if you don't take your kid to a drag show, you're a bigot.
Yeah, I know. It's actually getting that scary. Elon Musk famously says that he lost one of his sons. His son is dead, he used the term. His son's name was Xavier, and he was given into, I guess, Elon blames the woke mind virus. It got Elon, he admits it. It got Elon's woman, he admits it, and it got his kid. How important do you think he has been in, I guess, legalizing the kind of free speech because if X didn't exist right now, and the global culture wasn't turning towards free speech, you'd now be banned everywhere right now. Rumble exists. We're free to talk here. We're free to talk on X. Do you think it's brave of Elon to admit his mistakes and come out and acknowledge that he fucked this one up? Because I think that's one of the bravest things I've seen any trans parent ever do.
Yeah, what did he say he messed up though about his son?
He said the woke mind virus infected me in California and everywhere I lived, and doctors told me my kid was going to kill themselves if I didn't go along with this, and it was stupid of me. And a man as smart as Elon, by the way, who I'd argue is one of the smartest people currently living on the planet, do you think it's important for people like him to be speaking up?
I think it is, because I saw another one similar to this Elon example of a father crying in his car because he just found out that his kid's primary physician, his kid I think was 8, was trying to tell her that she might be trans, and the father was furious. Now what Elon's saying is that he kind of was apprised of this and then kind of went along with it. I think it's good for fathers and mothers and parents in general to speak up about how they're being persuaded to go along with this stuff, because like any cult, when you're surrounded by this echo chamber of people telling you, no, they're trans and this is the way it is and it's okay, and they're going to kill themselves if you don't go along with it. It's very easy for even people like me and you and Elon to question ourselves and go, wait, maybe that's true. Maybe my son does need to transition. So I think more stories like that will show just how disgusting it is and just how far these communities are willing to go to exploit kids. And so I'm glad for him, not only for speaking up, but giving people a platform to talk about it on X.
Yeah. Well, I think, Josh, the work you've done, as difficult as it must have been to not break character, I think you've done an absolutely fantastic thing. You've done an absolutely fantastic job. I'm privileged to be one of the first people to speak to you here, but I think that your real impact is going to be made within the next few years. The results of this experiment, speak very, very loudly. You're the first person to ever pull this off. I hope to see you on Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Piers Morgan, anybody who will tell you, and I'll happily tweet this clip at them. Hopefully, because I know them all personally, hopefully they take this seriously and they're happy to sit down and have conversations with you where you speak to other trans activists who don't agree with your experiment. I hope that you absolutely blow up from here. So why don't you tell all of the listeners where they could find you, one, and then some closing words about what you tried to achieve and why you're hopefully proud of yourself.
Well, Tristan, I really appreciate your words. If you could tweet that out, that would be
I will.
fantastic, because my whole goal with this was to, once I revealed it was a social experiment, continue the dialogue and conversation in an intelligent way. I want there to be an open discussion. These are important matters that affect all of us and our children and future generations. And so I want to go on every podcast and show I can and debate people, or whether they agree with me or not, I don't care. I just want to talk about it. So I really appreciate you saying that. My part, people can find me on X at Josh Sider. I have the blue check mark, so it should be easy to see me. I think I have like 18,000 followers. I just started it 3 weeks ago. And then they can find me on Instagram and all of my videos at Josh Sider Official. And my parting words for everyone would be: think for yourself, and just use a little bit of critical thinking skills when you're being told something. And if it feels off or it doesn't pass the smell test, don't believe it. And you're not alone. There's other people like me and Tristan out there that probably believe the same thing you do. And it's okay to speak up about it and say, you know what, I don't buy this and it's bullshit.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Josh Sider. Josh, we'll continue talking the DMs and X, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Tristan. I appreciate you, man.
Wow, what an interesting fucking experiment. That is the single greatest thing I've seen. Everyone gave Matt Walsh this big round of applause with his, what is a woman? That was a very good question to frame towards these trans activists and these people, and nobody could answer his question. That was huge, because Matt Walsh is part of the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is obviously a massive media organization, and that got pushed and propagated everywhere. But I would like to see Josh on a lot more podcasts. I'd like to see Josh sit down with people who think his experiment was wrong, to think his experiment was sick. I'd like him to sit down with people who truly believe that this identifying as a different gender makes you the different gender. And so all of my fans who love to cut up my clips and post them around everywhere, as and when you post them on X, I'm going to tweet them at various big names in the media, and hopefully, this is just a springboard for him to go across and get his message across. Because he's not just this is the first time I've ever spoken to him. He's clearly a very intelligent guy. You could tell that from his vocabulary, from his worldviews. He understands things like psychology far better than someone like me. He's obviously a hyper-intelligent guy, and I think it would have taken someone with a bit of brain power behind it to pull this off and not get exposed, because a lot of people would very easily, have slipped up. People would have caught onto them. So I'm actually very proud of that guy. That was an absolutely awesome social experiment, and I hope to see much more of it. Now, the viewer number today is about, 10,000, 11,000, but I'm doing the show slightly earlier than normal because I have to go to an event. I'm going to the unveiling of the new Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I get invited to all of these because obviously I'm rich and I buy lots of stupid cars. But that's going to be the show for this evening. I'm going to make sure that clips of this show and the most profound moments of what Josh had to say propagate social media. It's going to be everywhere. Rumble, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, X, anywhere where hopefully we can keep the clip up long enough not to get banned, because I think what he's done is fantastically important. And please do share this conversation with parents, especially if you're a father or a mother. Please share this with other parents. Please share it with your friends. Share it with your trans friends, your gay friends, your LGBTQ friends. I don't think we said anything that was necessarily offensive, even though we go against the grain of the American left. And I was really keen to talk to him, and I'm super glad I managed to squeeze him in. So, enjoy the show, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome, and I'll see you next time.